Good morning, everybody, to everybody on the West Coast, and good afternoon officially on the East Coast. Thank you so much for joining us today on our Mentorship Monday. I know that we started these almost a year ago, and I don't believe I have been a co-host for a little while. So, welcome again, and thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. Today, we'll be talking about don't wait until impact, what your FAA Medical doesn't protect you from. I've been a pilot for over 10 years now, and I've been a holder of a medical, either a first or a third class, for many years now. And also, I've been impacted by health, just like a lot of other people. So today we're going to be talking about all sorts of different things that could impact your medical, as well as how life insurance might be able to help. So I would love to introduce you to our co-host today, as well as myself. My name is Brandon Martini. I'm the co-CEO and co-founder of Stratus Financial. We're the largest student lender in the pilot space in the US, actually, officially in the world now. I am a longtime pilot. I've got all four commercial airplane ratings. I've got my CFI, II, and MEI, and also I have an Icon A5, a Cessna 120, and I am just a passionate aviator, just like the rest of you, besides having my financial chops with Stratus. Outside of that, I would love to introduce Scott Sullivan. Him and I have become friends over the past year, and we finally got to meet in person over at our Aero Summit just a few short months ago. I guess it's already been almost 3.5 months or so, but it's good to see you again, Scott. Scott owns Sullivan Life Agency. He's a broker for Cemetery Financial, and he's a former FAA maintenance pilot, or sorry, maintenance maintainer, if I could speak properly this morning. I guess I need a little bit more coffee, huh? See, I've got
Yeah,
my charted all even on there.
nice.
Outside of that, he is an aspiring pilot, and we were talking before this, and I think Mosaic will make him an actual pilot at some point soon with all the changes there. But that's a topic for another day. So, without further ado, Scott, thank you so much for being here again, and I'll let you take it away.
Brandon, thanks a lot. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to your demographic here. I think it's really important that pilots kind of understand the dynamics of what their FAA Medical offers them and how life insurance can kind of help them. Um, Life insurance is kind of one of those things that people just don't really talk about that much until they need to. So I appreciate the opportunity to kind of dig into this one particular subject a little bit. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. It's going to be a great one.
Yeah. So just a quick little overview. We're going to cover a little bit of kind of what the big idea is. FAA medical equals financial safety. What happens when you lose your medical? I'm sure we all know somebody that has lost their FAA medical for one reason or another. Um, Loss of license insurance. That's something that's kind of touted about amongst pilots about how to kind of protect your income a little bit. Life insurance with living benefits. A real example, not a real name, but of somebody that I encountered since becoming a life insurance agent, and then what to do as a student pilot, and then why this matters. So your medical clears you to fly. Your FAA medical clears you to fly, but what if you're grounded permanently? So your FAA medical is the one tangent that says, yes, you are able to go fly. And then pilots go, they get all their material, they get a flight school, they secure an instructor, and they start flying. Without that medical, you don't get to do any of those things. So most student pilots assume that their FAA medical equals financial security because it kind of falls under the not me situation. This isn't going to happen to me. That doesn't gonna, I'm a young person. I'm gonna be good. So they think that their FAA medical equals financial security. But when you lose your medical due to an illness or injury, there is no backup. And so I'm going to break down some of the risks on how you can actually protect your future and your investment in your training.
And on that kind of for a second, Scott, I've always kind of had this. There's a reason why I lost a whole bunch of weight. It was because I was getting older and I was curious if I wouldn't be able to get a medical throughout my life again, because my blood pressure started creeping up as I gained more weight, and I finally lost almost 100 pounds because of it. I didn't want to lose my medical, so it's really important that you try to stay healthy because. I mean, I just do this for fun. I'm not a career pilot, right? I do have all my commercial ratings, but I I couldn't even imagine losing it because it would lose my passion. It would be unbelievable. So,
And that's an excellent scenario. And for my own personal, I haven't been able to get into a cockpit for the last going on 5 years now because I've had three reconstructive Achilles tendon surgeries and I just had a hip surgery. Well, I kind of need my feet and my hip to push on rudder pedals. So again, with weight gain and all that kind of stuff, not being able to kind of get back in the cockpit, I myself have to go through those steps to get my medical as well. So it happens to everyone, and it can happen at any time.
mhm.
Um, so your FAA medical is a fitness to fly certificate, but it doesn't protect any of your income. Losing it means you lose your career path, you lose your income, and it all disappears overnight with no disability benefits. So, for example, if you come down with, let's say, a terminal or chronic illness, your FAA medical isn't going to financially cover any of the things that your medical insurance doesn't cover. Um, so it's a big deal. There's no tuition refunds and there's no career roadmap. So once they pull your medical, you're just left to kind of figure it out on your own. Common causes of people that lose their medical: autoimmune disease, heart issues, mental health conditions, cancer, neurological diagnosis, and then your impact on student pilot's career. It's an immediate halt in your flight training. So all of the time and effort and money and dreams that you've invested into your flying career is now over until you get your medical situation squared away. And if you can't, then you have to figure out what you're going to do next. Financial strain from student loan obligations, emotional stress, no income continuity, and uncertainty about what your next steps are.
And there's a reason why, if we can go back to that slide real quick, Scott,
Yeah.
there's a reason why at Stratus we require borrowers to have a medical prior to signing loan documents. And although flight schools typically will say that you can get a medical, 95% of people get a medical if they apply for it and go through the steps, or it might even be higher than that. And the answer is probably yes. Yeah, that is correct. But I would say most people do not jump through all of the hoops that the FAA is going to make you do. So if you were ever on certain types of medication, you could have to do all sorts of types of studies over a year that costs a lot of money to get an initial medical. And a lot of people don't want to go through that just to change their career or do that for an entire year. So I would say that if you don't have that medical or you don't have it in the beginning, you will get it. It just may take a little bit longer. Um, but if you lose it in the middle of your flight training, that's a whole nother story, and that could happen from anything, even a car accident. So I think
Mhm.
that people really uh, they say that you're more likely to die in a car crash than you are to die in an airplane, right?
Mhm.
On the way to the airport, so to speak. And the
Mhm.
same thing, if you get into a car accident and you break your arm or something, hey, now you have to disclose that. Is it going to hurt you in your medical certification?
Mhm.
So you have to really be wary about that and try to keep your health up.
And especially if they put you on narcotics for your pain, you have to explain that you're no longer on those meds because they are in your medical record, and then you might need some additional documentation from your physician that you're clear of all that stuff. And I actually have a very, very dear friend of mine who is he has his private pilot certificate, several hundred hours, and ended up having a brain tumor, which they removed, and he's completely healthy, but he lost his medical, but he's in for a fight. He has to get lawyers involved and he has to go to battle with the FAA to clear him to fly again, because he's had since they've removed his tumor and have given him the ability to kind of continue on with his life. He's at no risk at having any type of episode or anything, and so he can have all that in his medical record, but he has to convince somebody at the FAA to give him his flight certificate back. So it's a very big deal. And this is someone who wanted a career in aviation and then had to change course. not
Yeah,
even not even halfway through.
it's sad, sad.
And he's
Well,
25, might I
hopefully
add.
he gets through it and continues
Yeah.
on. But like I said, mo most people do get their medical, but if he doesn't continue on, he won't. So he's just got to do the fight, and he's got to spend all that extra money, which is kind of unfair.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Um, Loss of license insurance. I love this one. Some people ask me, is it enough? Others think that it is enough. Now, the loss of license insurance that I'm aware of, there might be some other ones that I'm unaware of. They really don't cover hardly anything, and they're typically only available to ATP commercial pilots. It doesn't cover student pilots or those that are in training. Only pays a small lump sum or limited monthly benefit, no living benefits or flexible financial support. So when I talk about a small lump sum, it may only cover like $25,000. So for example, you're in a regional airline job, building up your time so that you can go into, an actual airline job, and you lose your medical and you have your loss of license insurance. That company may provide some sort of little financial cushion for you. But the money that you get from your loss of license insurance is only going to last you for a very short amount of time versus having access to your death benefit on a life insurance policy, which I'll talk about here in a little bit.
And
Uh,
I
sorry.
I heard there were rumors that this didn't even exist. So is it called something else? What is this type of insurance called that can even pay that small lump sum of 25,000?
I did a presentation in front of a regional airline here in Colorado, where I'm based, and there were a couple of pilots who opted to stay with their loss of license insurance, and it was only covering. I think in their case it was only like 30,000, but I've seen it as low as 25,000. So what it does is if you lose your medical for whatever reason, they'll pay you $25,000 so that you can pay your bills and do what you need to do while you try to fix your situation with your medical. Whereas on a life insurance policy with living benefits, let's say your death benefit is $500,000. You can actually have access to up to anywhere from 80 to 100% of that death benefit tax free to buy food, pay your mortgage, pay your bills, pay your student loans, pay whatever you need to pay while you deal with your medical situation. So it gives you a huge financial comfort over your loss of license insurance.
Do you have to pay that back? Is it like a temporary, like they just give it to you as a low interest loan?
No. So that's the beauty about life insurance. God is at 100, humanity is at 0. So they're guaranteed to uh, that you'll pass away at some point. And so you're supposed to be able to use life insurance while you're alive. You shouldn't have to punch your ticket in order for your death benefit to be paid out. So based on your overall health, and what you're comfortable with every single month in a payment, you can have access to that death benefit just by submitting medical documents saying, hey, I just got diagnosed with a terminal illness, a chronic illness, um, or there's a list of qualifiers that will allow you to have access, and it's a lot that will allow you to have access to that death benefit. So then what happens is, let's say your death benefit is 500,000, and you have a short-term chronic illness that is going to take several years to kind of get through. The insurance company might give you 50% or up to 80% of that, um, based on that diagnosis. And then so you'll get, let's just call it 300,000 or 400,000 put right into your account, tax free, and you can use it however you want. So the goal is to make sure that you have access to some death benefit. So when you do pass, some of that is your death benefit and all that stuff is covered already. So with remaining balance on there.
And do they also call this? I've heard it's also called not loss of license, like disability insurance. Isn't that the same thing as this, or is that completely different when it comes to being a pilot?
I think it's different. I think those are only offered through the company that they're working for. So not while they're in training. Life insurance is the when you're young, it's the cheapest form of income that you can kind of provide for yourself down the road, because you can get a lot of coverage for very little money. But the when it comes to life insurance, they a lot of carriers, because you are a pilot or you're looking at jumping out of an airplane for a living, they won't cover you because of the risk. So they tack on additional fees or they take away certain features of the coverage, that will not pay out if you get injured in an aviation accident related accident. So there's a little bit to it, but I'm fortunate to enough to work with carriers that will pay out no matter what.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Life insurance with living benefits. So this is what we just kind of already touched on a little bit. It isn't just for death. Living benefits allows you access to your coverage if you're diagnosed with a terminal illness, chronic, critical, like cancer, stroke, heart attack. In these scenarios, if they've given you a time frame, that you have a terminal illness, they'll give you 100% of your death benefit today, and not wait till you pass. Because what happens a lot of times in these scenarios is people will get diagnosed with something. Their medical coverage at their current job doesn't cover a whole lot, or it does, and then they still have copays to pay. But then all that runs out. They lose their job because they've been out of work for so long and they have no way to pay their bills. And this is why living benefits is so important. It is more important to have a policy with living benefits than your FAA certificate, in my opinion,
So
because of
on,
what it does for you.
on these living benefits, so for example, like prostate cancer is probably the most common cancer for a man to get, and it's very most of the time it's curable by removing or whatnot. Would that be considered a critical illness because that's something that can
Mhm.
be kind of taken care of very quickly and they'll pay out part of the benefits for that? Or is that something that they're not viewing because that might not be like a long-lasting cancer that's going to kill you until it gets to like a certain point? I know I'm not a doctor and those were not technical terms, everybody, so sorry.
Yeah.
But that's the best I could explain it.
Yeah, no, great question. And the answer is yes. So what we do is we take that medical diagnosis to the carrier, and in your policy documents it outlines everything that they cover. Again, like I said, it's a lot, but in that scenario, they will pay out your death benefit so that you can kind of take care of that. Because if you have a job already, or let's say you don't have a job. Let's say you're right in the middle of your training and you get diagnosed with something like this, and now your training stops. You have bills to pay. You have an apartment to pay for, groceries. You might be living at home with your parent. You might be married, and now you really don't have any dual income coming in. So these benefits will pay out for that type of diagnosis.
And let's just say you have $500,000 as your benefit. They'll pay that whole thing, or they'll just give you a portion because they know it's curable in 3 months or something.
They'll give you up to 80% initially. Each carrier is just a little bit. I haven't seen anything lower than 80%, but they will give you 100% if it's terminal.
Wow.
If they
Wow.
determine it's terminal, you get it right now.
Gotcha. But non-terminal, they'll pay you 80%.
Yeah, in most
And
cases.
and then I'm guessing you can't go to another carrier later on and be like, "Hey, well, I want to get new life insurance now." You're probably uninsurable after that, correct?
There are carriers that will cover you. However, you're looking at a very low amount for a very high monthly payment. And so, you could be looking at like 50,000, and depending upon your age, those are five, six, seven, $800 a month, depending upon what your situation is.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so that's the other thing. Getting life insurance while you're healthy and clean is the cheapest way to do it, because once you start stacking your medical record, the more expensive it gets.
That makes sense. I mean, at that point, it would make no sense to even get that $50,000.
100%. It's not even worth it
No.
because of what you have to pay. And so, you know, and once you have this in place, you could get diagnosed with something 6 months, 4 days, 20 years down the road, and they'll cover it.
Wow.
So it doesn't matter when it happens. It's just, as long as the policy's in place, they're going to cover it.
Do they run calculations or they just pay out the lump? So do they say, hey, you've got a $3,000 mortgage and you pay 2,000 in food and or whatever it may be, and you've got to take care of your kids. So we're going to pay you only for 2 years of this, or they just pay it as a lump. There's no calculation.
So that's a great question. That's actually all part of the application process. So when I talk with someone and we're going through the application, we determine, how much coverage they need, kind of what their responsibilities are. Hey, look, what does your mortgage look like? What are your normal bills? How long can you, if something happened to you today, if you got the phone call today, or your spouse got a phone call today that you either weren't coming home or that you had something that you were diagnosed with, how long can you pay your bills without an income? And most of the time, it's 30 days. After 30 days, people then have to make very harsh and drastic decisions. They have to move, they have to sell their house, they have to move in with somebody, they have to sell things in order to cover this expense. And so, but having a policy in place, once we get everything submitted over to the carrier, and now you have money in your account and you don't have to uproot your family and you don't have to uproot your life. You can actually focus in on your medical issue and take care of that. So it's huge. And like you were saying, you could be in a car accident. It doesn't have to be aviation related, but
Hmm. Makes sense.
so what living benefits does for you? It pays out cash while you're still alive, helps you cover your medical bills, rent, food, tuition, gives you time to pivot and figure out what your next move is, and it protects your family or co-signers on student loans, meaning you have funds to pay your student loans back, if you have a balance with your flight school, whatever your situation is.
Definitely, because we make a lot of loans, and a lot of them are young people who don't have established credit, so they need co-borrowers. And
Mhm.
trust me, co-borrowers don't like when we start hitting their bank account rather than your bank account. So
Mhm.
protecting them is really advantageous uh, for not just yourself, but for the people that believed in you in the beginning as well. So you're not just protecting yourself, you're protecting your loved ones by doing this.
Mhm. That's another great point because, even if a pilot drops out of school for whatever reason, they still have that loan that they're on the hook for, to pay back with their parents' name on it or their co-borrower's name on it. And so if they end up getting diagnosed with something, they have the ability to pay to make sure that their co-borrowers are taken care of. This was a real scenario. The name has changed, but this is a 23-year-old flight student who, in the early stages of his training, was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. Lost his FAA medical. He did have a loan, um, that he wasn't able that he's not able to pay. No income and no insurance. If he had a benefit of just $100,000, he could have he could have taken that money, paid his bills, had time to heal, explore other aviation related careers that didn't require an FAA medical. And he didn't need to panic or drop out of school entirely. He could have segued into something different. I recently came across a young man on TikTok who got into aircraft brokerage because early into his flight career, he had a medical episode, and wasn't able to finish. So he was able to segue into being an aircraft broker instead. So he had enough training to understand you know, how the airplane works and how to sell it, and then he segued over into being a broker.
That's not the one who's on TikTok, is it? What's his name?
He is on TikTok. I have him saved, and I did reach out to him because I'd actually like to talk to the guy.
Is it Amalfi?
No, no,
Oh, okay.
no.
Funny. He's
No.
always funny to watch and listen to. I know
Yeah,
a lot of our people listening on here are probably fans of his. I like it a lot.
yeah,
But
I am too. Colin is his name.
Colin, yeah, Colin, can we
Yeah.
actually can you go back one more
Oh,
to that?
sure.
So with the people that actually lose their medicals in the midst of training, I know that there's a lot of there's a few other lenders besides Stratus out there. And the problem with the other lenders out there is if you stop going to school and you drop out, your loans are now starting to get into repayment immediately. That means either interest only or full principal and interest payments are going to start being due. And your deferral periods are normally up. So if you quit going to school, your deferral period is done. That means you're going to start paying full payment on that like the following month. I
Mm.
just wanted to mention with Stratus, we give you a deferral period based on time. So even if you did lose your medical in the middle of this, we would still allow you to keep your deferral period for that 12 months with a Stratus loan rather than some of the other loans out there. So do keep that in mind as well. You wouldn't even have to be really stressed about that if something did happen in the middle of your training, at least on the Stratus side, because that was kind of baked in when we built our products. We thought about this from a real life perspective of somebody actually going to flight school and what are the ifs and whens that things could happen um, in the midst of your training. So I just want to mention that. So sorry, continue.
That, that's amazing. That's another buffer to help you deal with whatever your ailment is. That's huge.
Exactly.
What to do as a student pilot? Always, always, always make sure that you apply for life insurance while you're young and healthy, and look for policies that include living benefits, but also will pay out if something happens to you while you're flying. I think the other thing why people get denied, not really denied, but why life insurance policies don't pay out is because one of the questions that I ask in the application process is, are you looking at flying, parasailing, parachuting, rock climbing, anything dangerous? And if I mark no, if you tell me no, and then 2 months later you sign up for flight school and something happens to you, the carrier is not going to pay out. I shouldn't say not. They're gonna scrutinize that big time because flying an airplane isn't something that you just thought of the night before and then went and did. You were thinking about this for a long time and you had plans to do it, and they're not going to pay out for it, which is not good. So, 100% transparency on any activity that you want to do will ensure that we get you with the right carrier that will pay out no matter what happens to you. Um,
Are there a
avoid
lot of carriers? Are there a lot of carriers that will pay out?
that won't pay out.
That yeah, I mean that will. So are there a lot of carriers that you can get to choose from, or is it kind of whoever is the underwriter of the day and they just this is
No,
what you end up with?
there's a very small select few that offer these products to pilots and to rock climbers, to parachuters. Um, Everyone else. So, for example, there's a carrier out there that they have what's called an aviation exclusion rider. So, what they do is on a whole life policy, they charge you more per thousand of your death benefit, and then they take away the living benefits of the policy, which are the main reason to have the policy is the living benefits. So they charge you more and give you less coverage, and they will never pay out in the event of an aviation incident, crash, something like that. They won't pay out,
Wow.
and it's obscene.
I
You
mean,
know,
I don't see the point of having health insurance or sorry, life insurance if they're not going to pay if I die. Like
correct.
that's the whole
Yeah,
point. So
yeah, correct.
That's the reason why I personally I've only had a small term life insurance policy for a long time, and to be honest, I should probably have you review it because I've had it for a long time now, and I'm pretty sure that it has an aviation exclusion on that policy.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to get taken out on the 405 in order for them to pay that out. But you look at your overall situation and you're like, man, I'm easily with just a house and two cars and to give, if you're married and you have a small family to give them a buffer, you're into the million and a half coverage range for sure. But if you're a flight student who's in their 20s living at home, you might only need $100,000 to start. You might only need 300,000 to start. But I always look at it like get as much coverage as you can for what you can afford to do at this moment in time. Because once you get older, once you start kind of accumulating hours, you start accumulating, medical issues, back problem, whatever your situation is, it's just going to get more expensive for you. And if something happens along the way, you now have a really decent sized death benefit to cover you should you need it. Even though at the time that you got it, you're probably like, man, I don't really need all that. Well, today you don't. 5 years down the road, you might.
Exactly. And I'll tell you this, the amount of money a pilot makes throughout their entire career exceeds what a doctor makes in a lot of cases. So the fact that you're just starting out your career, maybe you're 18 to 21 or whatever age you are, starting out your career as a pilot, yeah, sure, you're not going to be making very much money right now, but you're going to be making more than a doctor would make and working about a fifth as much towards the end of your career. So why not protect that investment? I would get the largest policy you possibly could that you can
Mhm.
afford, obviously. What are the typical policy sizes you're seeing out there? Like, what's the largest one? If I wanted to go get the biggest policy I possibly could, what is that amount?
You can get most carriers will go up to 5 million, but that's going to require once you get past a certain amount, it requires a medical. And by medical, I mean they come to your house, they draw blood, urine sample, and then you're done. That's really it. But when you get into those higher amounts, you're looking at a little bit more extensive medical. So it takes, several weeks to get a policy like that through. But when you look at your overall expenditure annually or monthly, um, you're leaving that to your loved ones. So you're leaving that responsibility and that headache and those nuances to your financial situation to your loved one or to your parents. And they're going to struggle trying to figure that out. So having policies in place and instructions to make sure that they know how to take care of it from there just takes a ton of headache off the table. And I'm sure that there's a lot of people who are on this call and who, or who are going to watch this have either personally experienced something similar or have witnessed their friends go through the situation of they lost a loved one. There was no policy, there was no trust, there was none of those things in place. And it took a year, maybe 2 years to settle that estate. You have to go, you have to get the estate involved because you have to go to probate court because they want to make sure they get their money. So there's a lot of things that people don't think about that are huge problems for those left behind that a life insurance policy can really kind of take care of.
Great.
Um, oh yeah, and then living benefits will protect yourself from future medical disqualifiers as well. I always like this quote. You don't want to buy insurance when it's raining. You want to buy it while the skies are clear. Um, Flight students who couldn't finish. Yeah, and then commercial pilots stuck in debt, parents left holding the financial bag. No one ever thought they'd be the what if. Um, I like these scenarios because as as you mindlessly scroll through social media, I really kind of want people to take a look, especially TikTok. If you're scrolling through TikTok and you're bored, you're sitting on the couch, count how many swipes it takes you to find somebody that is begging you to stay and watch because they have an unfortunate situation that having living benefits and a life insurance policy could have, and it won't take long. It'll take probably four, maybe five swipes, and you'll find somebody that's going through something medical hardship, and they never thought that it would be them. Nobody ever thinks it's them until it is. And so that's one challenge I like people to try to do tonight while they're just sitting around. How many swipes will it take them to find somebody that's going through something? And most of the time, it's a situation where a life insurance policy with living benefits would have helped them tremendously, and they wouldn't have been on there asking. Um, so, just some key takeaways here: your FAA medical protects your ability to fly and not your finances. Losing your medical is means no flight career and no income. Loss of license insurance is limited and not made for students. Life insurance with living benefits can fill a huge financial gap and alleviate a lot of financial stress. Protect your future now before impact. And here is my contact info. It's real easy. We have a conversation. I really try to understand what your goals are and your aspirations are, and then we put something in place so that you can actually pursue your dreams and your career and protect your financial investment as well as your emotional investment with a life insurance policy that'll keep you covered. So
Well, Scott, I know this was very informational today. I really appreciate everything you talked about. I know that I need to look at my policies, so let's you and I should talk in the next month or so and
you got
just
it.
have a conversation. I know the next couple weeks are busy for me, but
Yeah, you
I'd
got
love
it.
to kind of discuss it. And I've always thought that I can't get insurance or I'm uninsurable for a whole bunch of different reasons, mostly due to all of my business holdings and investments and stuff. It makes it so I need a lot larger policy. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense for me. But it sounds like I could still get that big policy. And um, but I think I'll probably need the needle in the exam, unfortunately. But
You might, yeah, you might.
um,
Well, they do have what's called key person insurance for businesses. So if one business partner should happen to pass, then there's a policy there to make sure the business continues to run. There's a few different options, but no, I'd love an opportunity to chat with you about it because
yeah.
it's super important.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We've got a whole big binder of insurance policies we have over at Stratus and personal umbrellas, et cetera. So I could probably talk insurance a little bit too in
Yeah.
depth. In my past life, before I got into aviation, I was an auto adjuster, well, an insurance
Oh,
really. So I was in the insurance company world all the time, and I knew exactly
wow.
um,
Nice.
how to deny claims. So I'm a little too savvy regarding claim denials and understanding how insurance
Yeah.
companies work, unfortunately. But
During my 20 years as a military aircraft maintainer, and just being involved in aviation, it was astonishing to me how little the pilots that I've known and even some of the maintenance crew just don't have it. And I was kind of shocked by that because it's not a priority for them. The job is, the FAA certification is, you know, diving into their study material and getting that PPL, flying, passing their check rides and getting onto the big airlines or wherever they plan on going. And to me, it needs to be joined at the hip with your FAA medical.
makes sense. Makes sense.
Hands down. Everything else will come. But those two things, you need both of them at the same time. So,
Absolutely. Well, I don't see any open questions right now, but
okay.
I want to say thank you again. We can probably wrap it up just a few minutes early. Thank you again for being with us today. It was absolutely fantastic to kind of hear your perspective on this, and I know I learned something. And that's always my goal in life is always be learning something new every day, whether it's small or big. but this one actually makes an impact on a lot of people's lives. I know it's probably not the most sexy subject to talk about, right? But it's an
Right.
important one, and I'm glad we have this. And I'm actually more happy that it's recorded so we can spread the word online to our pilots and future pilots that we're helping fund. So
Yeah, I'm excited. I really appreciate this unique opportunity. Everybody hears about life insurance, but when it comes directed at a community that I love and have been a part of all my life, it's important. So,
absolutely perfect.
yeah.
Well, on that note, I think we'll close it up a bit early today, but thank you all for listening and being with us. We really appreciate it. If you would like to reach out to Scott, obviously his information's on there. If you'd ever like to reach out to me, you can find me on LinkedIn. It's the best way to contact me. And just put in there Stratus Financial or Mentorship Monday webinar or something like that if you want to connect. That way I make sure to look you up. I think I'm the only Brandon Martini on there, and if not, I'm the best looking one, so just click that one. And we'll go from there. Thank you, everybody, again for your time,
Great.
and I hope you have a great day. Take care, everybody.
Thanks.
See
Thanks,
y'all.
Brandon.
Good.